Hey everyone, so we've heard this saying that today's expensive can become tomorrow's cheap. So that's the topic of my sharing today on how new launch benchmarks can reshape buyers' perception in Singapore's property market. This is really relevant because on my most recent video, I spoke about Hudson Place launch, how it achieved 24x PSF when just a year ago, the property right opposite only achieved 25% sales, right? Things have changed quite fast. But not just Hudson Place, there was Vela Bay as well, OCR as well, Bayshore, that crossed 28xx per square feet on more than 60% sales as well. We also had Tengah Garden, 99% sold, almost sold out, crossing 21xx PSF for an area that to onlookers they will consider ulu and undeveloped. The growth story there is over a long term transformation. What's the logic here? Logic, we realize after time that buyers don't really compare prices to history because I think after many years, buyers in Singapore especially are kind of conditioned. We have seen the market going upwards for close to 10 years now, since around the 2017-2018 period. So buyers don't tend to compare prices to history anymore. They compare prices to the available alternatives. Therefore, whenever a new launch resets the benchmarks, there are opportunities where older projects that suddenly look expensive suddenly appear as value buys. So what are these projects? What are some of the existing supply that has been silently moving? I want to share more with you here. These are the sales momentum of some of the select new launches that have really seen uptick in sales numbers following the recent launches. First is Narra Residences, and this was the clear standout. It didn't sell that many units at launch, but recently, especially right after Tengah, it sold number of units over that launch weekend and over subsequent weeks, in fact, as well. It has sold up to about 50 units to date in just over a month since the Tengah Garden Residences launch. That's because I think buyers have really realized that 21xx PSF is the new norm for OCR project across the regions. So somewhere like Nara, when you can still walk within 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes walk to Hillview MRT station along the downtown line, I think buyers found that that is good value. We also had Union Square Residences. This one is very interesting. It's kind of like my second baby, especially since I did Canning Hill Piers previously, my first IC role. I did a previous video last time where I mentioned that Union Square Residences is a dark horse project. And also recently they ran very attractive promotions, which I also spoke about in my Riverside sharing with Orange Tea Agents, which you can click the link as well to check out. They were running attractive promotions, and hence I'm not surprised that they have seen more than 10 units, around 14 units sold exactly, to be exact, since the launch of Tengah Gardens. Another quiet project that has been moving is ELTA in Clementi Avenue 1, because realistically speaking, at such a location that's mature, people are familiar with, it has good rental demand, RCR, fringe, OCR zone, 12 units sold recently. It's still very good value entry there for certain layout types. For these projects, I'll go into more details later. Sometimes sales volume is more gradual and it takes more time, but look at one great example at the Continuum in the east. It's a freehold development, right? And today you think about it, leasehold is going 2.5, 2.8 even, and you can get a freehold in the east at an average price. Today there are still units going for about 2.7, 2.8 PSF. It launched only at 26% sold when people were saying that, wow, it's such an expensive price, right? But with all these changing of pricing benchmarks, now it is nearing 95% sold. Another one I want to raise up that's really interesting is at CCR, the One Marina Gardens, right? The first plot that's right close to the Gardens by the Bay area. It also launched at 38%, and silently it is now nearing 70% sold, right? Prices also average around 28xx PSF, starting from going upwards to around 3,000. People view it as good value now for a zone that is very much lifestyle oriented, and there's a huge strong long-term growth story there planned by the government. I want to dive a little bit deeper into why certain projects are still moving and you still have an opportunity. The first is Narra Residences, as I mentioned. Relative pricing is pretty attractive now when you look at the broader entire Singapore market. And this project also has strong upgrader demand from the HDBs at Bukit Panjang, at Choa Chu Kang, and Bukit Batok. In fact, right now I'm speaking to a client that is looking to upgrade from Bukit Batok, and one of their choice developments is Narra Residences. I have all the recent prices. Of course, always do check in with me if you want the latest pricing. And it's only about 36% sold, despite the recent uptick in sales. Still plenty of availability for buyers to choose from. Next is Union Square Residences. I want to dive a bit deeper as well. I have the prices listed here. They are running a 3-stack promotion on the 1+ study, the 2-bedroom, and the 3-bedroom layouts. Right? Many units have already sold, but they are probably still good buys for you if you're interested. When they're running the promotion, you can even get a lower floor unit at a cheaper price than a higher floor. Right? Look at the percentage sold, close to 50% now. Still many units available for selection. Third, of course, is ELTA, and this is quite close to home because it's right opposite the school that I studied at last time, Nan Hua High School. In absolute terms, many of units may not be that cheap because certain stacks they're only left with the higher floors. However, if we look closely at the larger units at ELTA, especially the 5-bedroom, for example, the entry price as low as $2,200 per square feet. So if you have a substantial budget, you're looking for a condo style living, you want a huge home space, I think ELTA can be a very, very decent choice. Even the smaller units, right? As time goes by, as prices of other launches catch up, ELTA initially when it launched, it was only the second project to cross 25xx per square foot on average. The first was Chuan Park, if I remember correctly, right? Now it is shown that these are starting to become accepted pricing, and ELTA has really starting to gain traction, and I believe this will carry on moving forward. I want to give a caveat here as well because I think I'm sure some of you listeners out there will think that, oh, he's an agent, he says this for every project. But I want to caveat hence. Benchmark repricing amplifies the good projects. It does not automatically rescue the bad ones. Fundamentals still matter, like we usually want projects that have a decent size. Location should be fair, something that's acceptable with proven demand or at least a plan for demand to come in future. Another thing to look out is initial pricing. If the pricing of the developer is wrong from the start, it can be quite dangerous for a buyer to enter in future. Okay, it's not a magic fix, and sometimes timing is unpredictable. It may not always happen, and sometimes when it happens, really depends on market sentiments and land prices, land bids, and how much developers price. Selection is key because if you purchase old stock and the developer's pricing wasn't right, there's always a risk that the developer might reduce their price in future, undercutting you as a subsequent buyer, right? So please make sure you select the right property and get the right advice. Finally, I want to run through quickly why this happens again, the psychology behind it. Because, like I said, buyers do not anchor to what the project launched at. Initial memory of a project always fades, right? Instead, buyers will always look at what's available on the market right now before they commit to any purchase, right? When they see that future launches, the units are getting smaller, more expensive, they are less attractive, maybe from a location perspective, facilities perspective, then without changing much, it's just the movement of the market, existing projects will gain appeal and gain traction. So if you're a buyer in the market, what should you be looking out for? Number one, and this is very important, always look out for the land bid prices because that will always tell the story a year later when it launches. Then monitor the launch prices at that time as well. Very importantly, are the existing supply around. Which projects still look relatively attractive? Which projects still have strong fundamentals but are maybe as a buyer on looking, you're waiting for the right entry? What areas are under the radar but you see sales slowly building up? Are you perhaps missing something? Sometimes when you enter a launch in the second phase, third phase after the initial pre-launch, it can also be good if you're buying for investment to rent out because it achieves its TOP sooner as well. Or if you're looking for own stay, you don't want to rent for too long, those can be great picks as well. The important thing to know is that this is not about chasing hype, it's about recognizing repricing early and making a move before the other buyers do. Because if you're a developer from a developer's perspective and you realize that other launches, their benchmark has made your project look cheap, what would you do? Well, you might increase prices, which, truth be told, some of the projects earlier have already increased their pricing, which I think is quite fair given the new benchmark in the overall Singapore market. So, as I go back to the original topic, today's too expensive can become tomorrow's good value if future launches continue to push the price ceiling upwards. Recognize the shift early and take advantage. If you have doubt in this market, feel free to get in touch with me for your property purchase. I'm Jim Tay. Like, subscribe, give me a comment, and I'll see you in my next video.